Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Welcome to this class. The course title is Comedy of Manners. This program is for BS English 6th semester students, morning, evening, and your course code is ENGL3124. And my name is Sheher Bano and I am from University Education Multan campus, and I am your course instructor for this particular lecture. In this lecture, we are going to discuss the Act 4 of this play, Hedda Gabler, and we are going to discuss the summary of this play as well as the critical analysis or comments of critics and my personal opinion on Act 4 of this play. So let's get started very quickly. First of all, let's see the setting of this play. We will begin the Act 4 of Hedda Gabler with the same rooms as the Tesmans. There is no change in the setting. The setting is taken from the previous act, which is the same room of Tesmans. So we are again in the mansion of Tesman. And the time of the day is evening. So this is the evening time of the day. Now, these particular things like place, time, colors, and tone, all these things, they set the mood of the play. Everything is symbolic when we talk about some literary piece of art. So you must need to keep these things in mind. What is the place where the action is happening, what is the time of the day, and what colors are used by the author, and what is the tone of the speaker's dialogue. All these things help us critically analyze the situation. Okay, so here is the same rooms as the Tesmans. So we are still in the house of Tesmans, and the time is evening. The drawing room is in darkness. Darkness, really very important. The back room is in light by hanging lamp over the table. Now there is a little light in the room, but that is artificial, and the source of light is a lamp over the table. So there is no natural source of light, and obviously it's evening time or night time, so sun is not there, and we already know what darkness symbolizes and what we mean by the presence of sun. So keep these things in mind. Then the curtain over the glass door are drawn close. So there is a boundary created between the inside world and the outside world, the curtains, they symbolize something with which we keep our secrets inside our house. We are not allowing the people outside our houses to see the things happening in our house, so that is why curtains are used. So you can see or analyze so many things from particularly the setting. Now we will first of all discuss the summary of Act 4, and I will give my critical commentary on the useful information if it comes by the way. Act 4 opens on Tesman's drawing room. It is evening. Hedda, dressed in black, is walking aimlessly about the darkened room. Bertie quickly enters and exits, and her eyes show signs of weeping. After a while, Aunt Julle enters also, dressed in mourning. Hedda goes out to meet her. Okay, so what we get from this little piece of summary, that Act 4 opens on Tesman's drawing room and it is evening time, and Hedda is dressed in black. Now the character's black clothing gives this final act a mournful, tragic atmosphere. So it is setting the mood of the play, the last act of the play, which gives us this detail that the person is wearing black, and in Western society you wear black when you are very sad, and you wear black on the funerals. So white is associated with purity, and white is associated as a wedding dress in Western society, and it is worn on by the bride at her wedding. And same is the case with the black color, that it is specifically worn on funerals. So the characters, the black clothing gives us this impact and gives this final act of mournful, tragic atmosphere. So you need to also remember that Hedda cannot stand the tardiness of death. She wanders from dark room to dark room, a stage picture of the state of her restless, purposeful soul. So in this act, as it begins, we see Hedda moving from one room to another room, and this action gives us a little piece of information about Hedda, that she is a restless soul and she is a purposeless soul who is wandering here and there in the search of something, in the search of peace of mind, or in the search of some material gains, as you have already discussed in the previous acts of this particular play. So this behavior is giving us more information about Hedda's personality. So moving on, the next point. Aunt Julle announces that her sister Rina has passed away. Hedda already knows this. Miss Tesman must soon return home and attend to her sister's corpse and prepare it for the grave. Hedda asks if there's anything she can do, but Aunt Julle says that such work is not fit for Hedda's hands or thoughts. So Hedda already knows that Aunt Rina has already died, but Aunt Julle, she gives her this information, and Hedda is asking Aunt Julle that if there is anything that she can do, but Aunt Julle, she refuses, and she says no, the talking of death and the chores related to death are not fit for Hedda's hands or her thoughts. So Hedda only asks if there is anything she can do because of just a social requirement. She wants nothing to do with Tesman's everlasting aunts. She already abhors them, and she does not like their company of both the aunts. We already know from the impact of previous acts of this play. So she is just asking this thing, that if I can do anything because she died, and do you need my emotional support, or if I can do anything just because of a social requirement. And moreover, there is another very ironic thing, that Miss Tesman, when she says that the work of death is not fit for Hedda, given that Hedda has just sent a man off to die and will kill herself very shortly. So when Hedda, she asks if she can do anything, and Miss Tesman, she says no, this thing is not suitable for you and your thoughts. There Oscar Wilde has used irony, because when Aunt Julle, she is saying no, talking of death and concerning your head with death is not a fit chore for you. So Hedda has already killed a person, not purposefully kill a person realistically, but she show a path to a person by which he committed suicide, and she is shortly going to kill herself too. So there is irony that between Miss Julle's dialogue and Hedda's actions. Next is Tesman enters. He is distraughtful after Aunt Rina's death, and he says he does not know how else to take such a loss. Hedda supposes that Aunt Julle will be lonely now that her sister has died, but Aunt Julle responds that she will provide boarding and care to some poor invalid or other. Won't that be a burden? Hedda wonders. Aunt Julle says it has not a burden at all, but the very reason for her life. She also looks forward to caring for the Tesman's child. So both Hedda and Thea, after Lövborg's death, are left in spiritual darkness. This is because in very different ways Lövborg's present helped those women give meaning to their lives. So Lövborg is the one character who has brought the source of inspiration for many characters, and Hedda and Thea are two of them, them characters. Aunt Julle is the most purposeful woman in the play, if only because she so relentlessly sacrifices herself to help others, and we can see this thing reflected in this summary we have just read, that Hedda is asking, "You will be alone," and Aunt Julle, she is saying, "No, I will not be alone. I'll try to indulge myself in charity works, or I will take care of the poor, and I will take care of the Tesman's child." So this shows that Aunt Julle is the most purposeful woman in the play, if only because she so relentlessly sacrifices herself to help others. The play as a whole is sympathetically critical of Aunt Julle's way of giving meaning to her life. She is not her own person wholly, but she seems satisfied with the meaning she has just created for her life, for herself and for her life. And she has created meaning for herself, for her life. How? By helping others and by sacrificing her own self for others. So now Tesman confides to Hedda that he is upset not only about Aunt Rina's death, but also about Lövborg, to whom he has yet to return the manuscript. Tesman also mentions having met Thea while out. "Did you tell her about the manuscript?" Hedda asks quickly. Tesman says that he did not. At this point, Hedda reveals to her husband that she cast the manuscript into the fire. So this is one of the most cruel acts committed by Hedda, and this is the only act of Hedda by which we can see how cruel a woman can be. Because as you already know, I hope by studying the analysis of the previous acts, that this manuscript has been so important for so many people. It was so important for, number one, Lövborg, because he created this masterpiece, and it is really very important for Thea because she has helped Lövborg to create this particular thing. This manuscript is also directly or indirectly very important to Tesman also, because it created a sense of competition, a sense of jealousy, not only in Tesman but also in Hedda. So this manuscript has so much symbolic significance in this play, and Thea Ejlert and Mr. Lövborg, they both loved it, adored this manuscript, and they considered this particular manuscript as their own child. So setting fire on someone's child and being shamelessly happy about is not expected from a woman. So here, this particular act of crime that Hedda has committed, we do not sympathize with the character of Hedda in Hedda Gabler. So if Tesman had mentioned the manuscript to Thea, it would be impossible to conceal the fact that Hedda destroyed it, and a scandal centering on Hedda would erupt. And the eruption of that scandal is the last thing that Hedda can expect from the world, or Hedda can bear. And we will see in the end of this lecture, or in the end of Act 4, why Hedda is keeping herself as away from any kind of scandal. So that is why she asks Tesman if he has told Thea about the manuscript, and he denies it, that he hasn't told it to Thea. So Hedda is honest with her husband because she can easily manipulate him into covering up the facts. And we already know, and we will know more facts about Hedda's personality. Tesman is outraged. He yells at Hedda and says that she has committed a felony as Judge Brack could inform her, and how could she, Hedda Tesman, do something so utterly wicked? With an almost imperceptible smile, Hedda tells her husband that she put the manuscript in the fire for his sake because he was so envious of Lövborg's work and because she did not want her husband to be outshone. So you can see here that how beautifully Hedda has manipulated her husband, and instead of taking all the blame, she is blaming Tesman for the acts that she has committed herself. So Tesman's indignation is understandable here, that his wife has committed a crime and has destroyed something of objective value. And what is something of objective value? That is that particular manuscript. Not only it was created by someone who is a rival or who is a source of jealousy or who is a competitor, but if we talk about the manuscript in particular, we can see that it has so much literal value, and it is one of the masterpieces, so it has some objective value. And Tesman, he is an artist, he knows the value of that particular manuscript, and he wanted to create it himself, but he couldn't. Nobody can. So destroying something which had so much objective value, which is near to perfect, outrages Tesman also. Hedda knows the most effective way of manipulating Tesman. However, she relents in her coldness towards him and professes to have burnt the manuscript because of a love she does not really feel. So now here she is lying again to Tesman that she cares about him, and she has burnt the manuscript just for the sake of Mr. Tesman. But we know the reality, and this is Oscar Wilde has shown us the ironic ways of upper class of the society, the irony between their dialogues and their real actions and intentions. And here we can see another important theme of this play, that is the power of manipulation, which Hedda has so much in herself. So Tesman is now torn between doubt and happiness. Hedda then goes a step further and suggests of her own violation for the first time in the play, that she is in fact pregnant by Tesman. Tesman laughs with excessive joy. Tesman says that he'll tell Brett himself. Hedda disapproves it. Tesman decides at last not to tell Brett just yet, but is pleased that Hedda has started calling him by his first name. So now, to win Tesman's silence about the fate of the manuscript, Hedda substantiates his bourgeois hopes for domestic bliss and fatherhood, because we already know that Tesman, he is so much in love with Hedda that he totally forgets about the importance of manuscript and the things associated with the manuscripts as soon as Hedda tells him that she is pregnant by his child, which is, as we know, a fake news. So this must cost Hedda a great deal spirituality, so much so that Hedda feels like she will be killed by it all. What is ugliest to Hedda is the fact that she is condensed to a play role she despises, that of the loyal, subservient and submissive wife. She can never be subordinate or submissive. She is so bold, she is superordinate, and she likes to take control of things, as we already know. So this is something she is doing out of her despises, and she is playing a role which she has hated all her life. This is the thing that is farcical, but Tesman, of course, misunderstands her. So Tesman becomes uneasy and thoughtful again when he remembers Lövborg's manuscript. Just then Thea Lövborg enters. She speaks in agitation. She fears that Lövborg may have met with an accident, given all the incredible rumors about him going around. Hedda expresses surprise that Thea, as a married woman, could bring herself to go about town inquiring after a man other than her husband. Hedda also advises Tesman not to get mixed up in his business about Lövborg. So now, not only Hedda has manipulated Tesman, she has also manipulated Miss Thea Lövborg, and she is surprised that Thea should act so courageously despite all the scandal as to inquire after a man she is not married to. And we know that when Thea Lövborg in this play is introduced, she is in search of her husband. But now all of a sudden the tables are turned and she is now aimlessly looking for a man who is not her husband. So Hedda is so much surprised that why Thea is taking so much interest in the absence of Lövborg. And she tells Tesman to keep out of the Lövborg's business, perhaps because she fears he'll implicate her in the man's death or in his manuscript's destruction. So she is refraining her husband to keep himself away from Thea or Lövborg's business because it would reveal her own cruel actions. So we here can see that Tesman, he is also feeling uneasy, and not only of her aunt's death but also of the burnt manuscripts, and also now of the absence of Mr. Lövborg. So Hedda, she does not care much about people living around her or people who love her. She is the center of her own universe, and she wants to be the center of everyone else's universe, and she wants to control all the people and their feelings and even their actions. So she is not taking into account that a person loves her so much, and she is deceiving that particular person also. So Judge Brack announces that Ejlert Lövborg has in fact been taken to the hospital and he is not expected to live. Thea cries out and says that she must see him alive. Tesman wonders whether Lövborg could have killed himself, and Hedda says that she is certain he did. This makes Brack suspicious. Hedda even guesses that Lövborg shot himself. Right again, says Brack, and Lövborg did so at 3 or 4 o'clock that very afternoon. So Hedda is clever but not very clever, and we know when someone commits a crime there are certain loopholes from where he can or she can be easily caught. Now Judge Brack is noticing all the activity being done by Hedda and her reaction on Lövborg's so-called fictitious accident. And Judge Brack, like Lövborg before him, lies to Thea rather patronizingly so as not to offend her feminine sensibility, because he does not want to break the news to Thea at once, and he just creates this story that he might met an accident and he might not live again ever in his life. But Hedda is so excited to think that Lövborg pulled off his beautiful suicide that she risks exposing her complexity. So only she knows that Lövborg had a pistol, and she knows when he went out in such thoughts and he might commit a suicide. So Hedda is so excited to think that Lövborg pulled off his beautiful suicide that she risks her exposing her complicity. It is because Hedda's guesses, as we can see here, that Lövborg shot himself, that Brack is able to deduce that the pistol Lövborg died was given by someone and it was not stolen. So Hedda, in her excitement, she forgets and she loses control and starts revealing some little facts that she already knows, from which Judge Brack he deduced so many things about Hedda, and he is going to use those particular things in his own personal interest. So here we can see that the theme of tragedy is shown in this particular paragraph. So Tesman asks where Lövborg shot himself, and Judge Brack responds uncertainly at his lodgings. Thea says that this isn't possible because she was there herself at about 6:30. Brack also reveals that Lövborg shot himself in the breast. Hedda is surprised. Not in the temple, she asks. In the breast, Judge Brack repeats. The breast is cut too, says Hedda almost inaudibly. Okay. So Brack evades answering where Lövborg died because he is again protecting Thea from the ugly truth. So Judge Brack's intention is not to hurt Thea because she is present there and she loves Lövborg so much, and he is twisting the incident of Lövborg's death to Thea just to comfort her distressed soul. But more than Thea, the character who is taking more interest in Lövborg's situation, in Lövborg's suicide and the facts associated with, was the character of Hedda. And Hedda is disappointed that Lövborg did not shoot himself in the temple, because doing so would have indicated absolute deliberation on his part, and in Hedda's eyes unconditional courage, and unconditional courage is the only thing that Hedda adores, that Hedda worships. So Hedda for one feels triumphant. To everyone's shock and alarm, she praises Lövborg for the courage and the beauty of his deed. Tesman and Thea think that he must have been desperate and mad to do such a thing, but Hedda is certain he wasn't. Thea insists, just like he was when he tore up his manuscript. So Tesman and Thea, they both are feeling so depressed, and they have not expected such an action from Lövborg. But Hedda is so much fantasizing the death of Lövborg that she is shamelessly so much happy and proud of Lövborg for committing suicide. So this moment in the play must clearly reveals how radically different Hedda's values are from those of the people around her. And we already discussed this thing, that Hedda does not care a little about people who are around her, and she just concentrates on herself only. And she thinks that a suicide can be beautiful, so long as it is a pure expression of one's own personality and will, while everyone else is scandalized by it and consider it as act of temporary insanity. So Thea and Tesman, they think that maybe Lövborg was very mad, maybe he was so much angry on something, or he is so much depressed on something that he committed suicide. But on the other hand, the reaction of Hedda and her theory about suicide is totally different, and she thinks that it is so much beautiful for a person who commits suicide, but only on his or her own condition. If someone wants to die, then he or she has all the right to take his or her life. So we can see the mental state of Hedda, that she is not willing a bit to lose control to others. So the mention of the manuscript agitates Tesman's sense of guilt. Thea wonders whether the manuscript could be put together again. She has all the notes he used when dictating it. On the spot, Tesman commits himself to the task of reconstructing the manuscript, even at the expense of his own work, and Thea agrees to be his companion in the task. So here we can see the theme of guilt being exposed, and not the guilt of Hedda the great gabbler, but the guilt of Mr. Tesman. So when he learns about his condition, he thinks that he is somehow the one to blame, and to make himself feel better, he thinks that he must reorganize or recreate that particular masterpiece that Lövborg has created. And Thea, she is now really very ready to help him. So Tesman's conscience is not entirely free from defect. After all, he hides the fact that his own wife destroyed Lövborg's work. But he, unlike Hedda, does feel guilty and compelled to act on that guilt. So he is feeling guilty, but again there is a flaw in his conscience, that he is not yet ready to express the whole truth, that those manuscripts were burnt or torn by his only beautiful wife, Hedda Gabler, and he is not exposing that truth in front of everyone else. So Thea immediately she redesigns her life around the purpose of reconstructing Lövborg's manuscripts, just as she redesigned her life in helping Lövborg to compose it in the first place. So Thea is the source of inspiration for Lövborg, and this manuscript has helped Lövborg to overcome so many things in his life. And it is only because of Thea Ejlert that Lövborg got so inspired. So she thinks that if she can help him create such a beautiful masterpiece first time, she can help the same way Mr. Tesman to recreate that particular manuscript the second time. So Judge Brack, he suspects that Lövborg meant more to Hedda than she is willing to admit, but she refuses to answer such a question. Hedda is pleased that Lövborg had the courage to live his life on his own terms, and to so beautifully take his early leave of the life. So Hedda is remarkably open with Judge Brack in sharing her wildly strange feelings about Lövborg's death, and she does not know that revealing such personal feelings in front of Judge Brack would do harm only to her. And we might wonder whether, if only subconsciously, she is even now resolving to follow in Lövborg's footsteps. Either way, we now clearly see just how desperate Hedda has been feeling, and how stifled by what she sees as the commonness and the ugliness of modern life. Judge Brack is not, no doubt, jealous that this dead man should have meant so much to Hedda, but is also pleased to be Hedda's sole confidant now. So now Judge Brack, he is jealous of Lövborg. Why? Because Hedda is taking so much interest in his death, and she is fantasizing and she is praising the way Lövborg has led his life and the way he has taken his life and committed suicide. So Jack Brack told a few lies to protect Thea's feelings. First, Lövborg is already dead, and moreover, Lövborg shot himself not at his lodgings but rather at a Mademoiselle Diana's saloon. Finally, Lövborg was found with the discharged pistol in his pocket. It has gone off accidentally, and the bullet struck him in the abdomen, not in the breast. So we can see the character of Judge Brack also, but his intentions are pure. He has told some lies to Thea and all the people present there, and his sole intention was to protect Thea from the great grief, and he broke the news in simple stages instead of telling the whole situation of the cruel departure of Lövborg's soul. So Hedda is so much mistaken about the so-called beauty of Lövborg's death because she thought that he has taken his own life so courageously. So the irony is this, that he has not taken his life courageously or romantically or with so much bravery. Rather, it was an accident, a rather foolish accident. And so her idealized version of him is once again shattered. Brack's news reveals that Lövborg had not pledged himself firmly to death as Hedda has supposed. Indeed, Lövborg was still trying to recover his manuscript, the one thing that would have made it possible for him to keep on living. The squalid circumstances of Lövborg's death are especially disgusting to Hedda in their petty, commonplace ugliness. So when Judge Brack, he reveals to Hedda the complete details of Lövborg's death, she is now disgusted by the way Lövborg died, and she is so much disappointed in Lövborg, and at the same time she is so much disappointed with herself also, that she has been admiring his departure or his suicide, and she has imagined it romantically in her mind. So she is feeling depressed right now. So Hedda is disgusted. She says, "Everything I touch seems destined to turn into something farcical." She says Brack has one final piece of news. He says that the pistol Lövborg died by must have been stolen. So this is something which is going to cause Hedda distress. And Hedda now sees that she has led Lövborg from farcical disgrace to farcical death. She has gained control over him, but has been unable to use that control to inspire something beautiful and worthy, as Thea did. So she wanted to do something. She wanted to be a source of inspiration for Lövborg, because secretly, as we already know, that she was in love with Lövborg, but he was not financially very strong, so she completely chooses Tesman and marries him only because of materialistic gains. And Hedda thus loses hope of finding beauty in the world, or at least loses hope of creating or causing something beautiful, which is the only kind of beauty she cares about, seemingly. So when she learns about this thing, that Thea has inspired Lövborg to create such a beautiful masterpiece, she also wanted to be a source of inspiration. And according to her, the most beautiful thing that she can cause someone to create is their own suicide. taking control of their own life, and as she imagined it, it wouldn't turn the same way. It was just an accident. So again we can see the theme of power and influence is present here again, and this manipulative power, this causing influence, and this theme has been one of the most important themes if we talk about comedy of manners. The previous text that you have already studied is the importance of being honest. You can also see in that particular text also that how a person is trying to manipulate the other person, and how a person is trying to take control of other person's life. So in comedy of manners we are talking about restoration period, and we know that in restoration period and in comedy of manners we are focusing on the elite class, and it is one of the most important characteristic feature of the elite class, that they want to take control of people around them. Either they belong to the same class or from lower class or the middle class or any other class. They just want to control not only their actions but also their emotions and each and everything going on around them. So Hedda is also one of them. So Tesman asks Hedda if he can work at her desk where the light is better. Hedda permits it but says she must clear some things away first. She takes an object from there. So it is ironic that Hedda keeps her pistol at the desk because she takes those pistols away from her desk where Tesman and Thea want to work, and for the desk is usually a place of composition and creation, and pistols are the source of destruction and the opposite of composition and creation. So again we can see that irony is used by the great Oscar Wilde here. So Hedda, however, can only be the author of destruction, whether for herself or for others. She is the source of destruction, and she always wanted to be the source of influence or creation for others. But here again the irony of Hedda's life. That she moves the pistol here suggests that she is already making arrangement for her suicide. She wants as ever to be discreet, and even in the most discreet actions. So she when she learns about Lövborg's death, this is the only moment that she wants to she is taking control of her own life, and she is now planning her own suicide. So Hedda and Judge Brack whisperingly resume their conversation about the pistol that Lövborg died by, and Brack knows the pistol to be one of Hedda's because we already know the confusion in the dialogues of Hedda reflected this thing, which means that when the case goes to the court, Hedda must testify that Lövborg either stole the pistol or that she gave it to him. Either case entails a deep, ugly scandal for Hedda herself, the only thing she is afraid of. So she is so much afraid of to be scandalized, and Judge Brack now knows all the details about Hedda's action. So Judge Brack reveals that he finally has information with which he can blackmail Hedda. He knows she is complicit in Lövborg's murder. This may not be criminal, but is certainly disgraceful. So we know how much Hedda cares about her image and her personality. So to scandalize her personality would be the last thing and the most cruel thing a person can do to Hedda. So Judge Brack, he is using this piece of information in his own interest, and he is now going to blackmail Hedda. And especially vulgar is the fact that Hedda would have to stand on the same level as the other women who held so prominent a place in Lövborg's sexual life. So Hedda and Judge Brack, Tesman asks Hedda Hedda and Judge Brack whisperingly resumed their conversation about the pistol that Lövborg died by. So we have already discussed this slide. Let's move to the next one. No one will know who owns the pistol if he himself holds his tongue. Hedda understands at once that this places her in the judge's power. Very important thing. So Brack promises not to abuse the position, but Hedda cannot endure it. So Brack thinks it is inevitable for Hedda to at last acquiesce and grant him the sexual access he so strongly desires in exchange for his silence. So now Judge Brack, he is blackmailing Hedda, and he wants a scandal, or rather sexual intimidation with Hedda, and he says that he will hold his tongue if Hedda agrees to his desires. And obviously in this way Hedda is losing control, and the actions of Hedda are now controlled by Judge Brack. Losing control is the last thing Hedda could do to herself, and Hedda agrees that she must acquiesce to the inevitable, but what is inevitable means for her only death. Brack's conventional lustful mind misses this altogether. And Hedda rises and remarks that Thea is now sitting here with Tesman, working just as she used to sit with Lövborg. Hedda asks if she can anything do to help, but Tesman says that she should just enjoy Judge Brack's company, and we can see that how much she is enjoying in Judge Brack's company. So it is perhaps darkly amusing to Hedda that her husband and Thea have so seamlessly reconstructed the relationship Thea once forged with Lövborg. Hedda wanted to be the source of inspiration for Lövborg, and she couldn't do that thing, and she rather became a source of destruction for him. So now Thea first of all has replaced Hedda by having an affair with Lövborg, and now she is looking at Thea and her husband Tesman, that they are creating together something beautiful. So, the manuscript of Lövborg, and Thea, the way she has inspired Lövborg, is now inspiring her husband Tesman, and Hedda could never inspire neither Lövborg nor Tesman. So Hedda is envious, and Hedda envisions them developing romantic feelings for one another, and Thea once again succeeding where Hedda had failed. All the more reason for Hedda to leave this world. So we can see that step by step everything around Hedda is compelling her or distressing her to commit suicide. So Hedda says that she must go lie down on the sofa in the inner room. She exits behind the curtains, and after a short pause she is heard playing a wild dance tune on the piano. Tesman asks her to stop out of respect for Aunt Rina and Lövborg's deaths. Hedda puts her head out between the curtains, says she is thinking of Aunt Julle and the rest of them too, and promises to be silent in future. She draws the curtains together again. So Hedda's wild music making is socially inappropriate. We know that because there had been 2 deaths near them, and 2 very near our family members, they died. And when someone dies, out of respect, we are not supposed to play wild music and indulge in something which is entertaining, just to be respectful to the person who has died. So Hedda's wild music making is socially inappropriate, as Tesman makes it clear. But it is her last act of defiance against the littleness and the boyar tameness of her world, and also perhaps the wild, meaningless final cry of a great soul that has found no outlet for its passion. So there is so much going on in the head of Hedda, and she is unable to express her frustration, distress, and depression, and nobody can understand this thing because nobody knows the real truth behind it. And the more Hedda wants to control her and her life and people around her, people are controlling her. First of all, in the form of Judge Brack, and he is rather controlling her in a very cruel way by blackmailing her. And now Tesman dictating her not to play wild music and taming again trying to tame her. So this thing is reinforcing all the negative emotions or the negative feelings and depressions going on in Hedda's mind. And Hedda ironically promises to be silent in future, meaning of course the endless silence of death. In this poignant scene, Hedda is essentially spitting in the world's face and playing herself out. That okay, if you are not allowing me to play music or express myself, I'll be silent. And this silence is ironic because in the future Hedda tries to silence her or succeeds by committing a suicide. So back at the desk, Tesman says that Thea will have to move into Aunt Julle's loggings where he can come up in the evenings to work instead. From the inner room, Hedda lets her husband know that she can hear what he is saying. So I'm really very sorry, there are a few spelling mistakes in the slides, please correct them. First, the third line is from the inner room. Hedda lets her husband know that she can hear what he is saying. So Tesman is already putting into place conditions that will make it all too easy for intimacy to develop between him and Mrs. Elvested, because he is suggesting this thing that Thea and Tesman, they should go to Aunt Julle's house and they should meet there in order to recreate the manuscripts of Lövborg. And Hedda is listening to this conversation, and she is already feeling this thing, the emotional tensions going on in between Thea and Tesman. So Hedda makes it clear that she knows exactly what he is up to, but she finds his plotting boring and conventional because Hedda is not so much in love with Tesman, and she is already done with the people and the world, that she thinks that this scandal is too boring and conventional. She seems to ask about her evenings alone, knowing that the answer will be bleak and give momentum to her death. So Tesman responds that Judge Brack will visit Hedda. Hedda supposes that Judge Brack would like that to be in power. So Tesman, he does not know what are the intentions of Judge Brack, and he says that while he is with Thea, she can be with Judge Brack and she will enjoy his company, without knowing that Judge Brack has sexual intention towards his wife. So Hedda's vision of the future certainly does seem hateful and bleak here. Tesman and Mrs. Elvested would fall in love over their work, and Brack will blackmail Hedda into an affair during their long hours alone. So a shot is then heard from the inner room. Everyone jumps to their feet. Hedda is playing with those pistols again, says Tesman. He pulls the curtains aside and runs in. They find Hedda dead. Confusion and shouting ensue, and an alarmed Brett comes in from the right. Tesman cries that his wife has shot herself in the temple. Judge Brack is shocked. People don't do such things, he exclaims. So, on the shallowest level of interpretation, Hedda kills herself because it is the most radically unconventional and even mad response to her situation. But more importantly, she shoots herself in the temple so that she can have the beautiful death that Lövborg fell short of. So, she wanted this kind of suicide for Lövborg, this kind of taking control of their own life, and Lövborg could not provide her that particular feeling, so she took her own life the way she wanted Lövborg to take his. So Judge Brack's final words are then especially important in showing just how misunderstood and alone Hedda felt in her world of mundanity, cliché, and ugliness to those around her. Her suicide is not wrong, tragic, or beautiful, but only unconventional. Hedda's desire for drama and beauty was always contrasted with her farcical nature of her reality, and this ultimately leads Ibsen to ask, is Hedda's death a beautiful tragedy? So here Henrik Ibsen, the most famous playwright of modern drama, he asks this thing, that is Hedda's death a beautiful tragedy? Is her death is a tragic event or not? Or is this thing a beautiful scene or not? Or else something partial, sad, or meaningless? This ambiguity makes Hedda a thoroughly modern heroine and makes the play ending especially poignant and thought-provoking. So Hedda is one of the most courageous and modern women of this era and in comedy of manners. And you will study the in-depth analysis of the play and different themes and symbols, and I hope this last act of the play, as beautifully written as it is, you must read the text, especially the last 10 or 5 pages where Hedda is getting frustrated by the people around her, and you will just love the type of language that Oscar Wilde has used in his play. So thank you so very much for listening to this thing, and these are the references from where this data has been taken, and I hope you guys are taking great care of yourself. Stay blessed, stay safe. Allah Hafiz.